Killer Bees, it's Paula B from PaulaBFitness.com, and on tap today I've got a great cardio and core balance ball workout for us. Yes, I said cardio with the balance ball. This is an unusual kind of HIIT today. I've got my handy dandy gym boss here set for intervals of 50 seconds of work and 10 seconds of rest, and we are gonna get sweaty. I do have a nice warm-up for us, so when you're ready, grab your ball. Let's go! Alright you guys, let's get moving and grooving. We're going to start with a nice warm-up. The way I always like to start my warm-up is with some big arm circles. Really thinking about stretching those arms forward and back. Trying to get your elbows all the way up next to your ears, even if it feels a bit stiff and creaky like it sometimes does when we're first getting warmed up. Really going to think about pulling through the chest, pulling through the upper back, trying to get nice and warmed up all through that shoulder joint. We do have a little bit of arm work today, a little bit of plank work today, so I really want to make sure that our arms and shoulders are ready for it. Now, of course, we've got some good cardio that's going to get us really warmed up. In fact, our first couple of intervals are cardio type work, so I want to make sure that we've got our joints warmed up before we get going on that cardio, and then we are going to get right to it. We're also going to do some arm crossers. We're doing, I don't even know how many that was, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 in each direction, just making sure that we are ready for some work today. This is not going to be a long workout today, one of my favorite kinds, where it moves along pretty quickly. We don't have to repeat too many times. I've got my handy dandy gym boss set for intervals of 50 seconds of work and just 10 seconds of rest. And we're going to do each exercise for 2 intervals in a row before we move on to the next thing and never see it again. Let's go ahead and do some high knees too. Nice and quick, already starting to bring that heart rate up just a little bit. Not too crazy yet. We're going to have plenty of time for high heart rate work once we really get going. So really pulling in that core. This is balance work today. We do have a fair amount of balance work. It's a balance ball, so you know there's going to be balance work involved. So nice and tall, standing up real straight, not curving into this. And then of course some booty kickers too. And then we are going to get going with something that I call double knees. Now we're going to have the ball in our hands. It's the tiniest bit of resistance. Trust me, your ball doesn't weigh very much, but it's funny how heavy it gets after we start carrying it around for a little while. So we are going to do our cardio with just that little tiny bit of resistance today by having the ball in our hands. We're going to bring up one knee for 2 reps, and then, yeah, reps, I know, 2 times up, and then the other knee on the other side. This is one of my favorite low impact cardio moves. So I'm going to go ahead and get my timer going. Grab your ball, and here we go. 50 seconds of work. So double knees, 1 knee, 2 knees, and then other side. Back and forth with 2 reps, not reps, 2 reps on each side. Going as quick as we can, not really worrying about precision or balance with this one. This is definitely a cardio interval. And I know you're already feeling it. This ball isn't heavy, but man, I've got to be warmed up my shoulders. It's funny how heavy it got, how much, even just this little bit of work, that little bit of squeezing, really getting some upper body in with our core. When it beeps, we get 10 seconds of rest, and then we're going to do this exact same exercise for a second time. Awesome. Woo. Shake out those arms, huh? When it beeps, we're going to do that exact same thing one more time, and then we're never going to see it again. Here we go. Nice and quick. Really kind of getting that heart rate up. Already starting to feel it. This is about as jumpy as we're going to get today. The cardio that we're doing is nice and low impact, nice and quiet. When it beeps again, we get that 10 seconds of rest, and then we get to sit on the ball. The next exercise that we're doing is something I call hip rolls. So we're going to sit on top of the ball, and we're going to slide from side to side, picking up both feet. This is balance work. It's also a little bit more cardio. Really getting our hips, knees, and ankles nice and warmed up. So side to side as quickly as you can go. Really feeling this in my obliques already. You want to get some more cardio to it? Pick up your hands, put them over your head. You know what I say about that. Anytime your hands are up over your head, it brings your heart rate nice and high. Making sure that you're picking up both feet at the same time, not just walking from side to side, but actually rolling and hopping from side to side. Really works your balance in a different way. Very challenging. Totally feeling this in my abs already, as well as my shoulders again. Funny how that's happening today. We are going to do work that's a little bit slower than this also. These first couple of intervals, first couple of intervals are definitely high heart rate. 10 seconds of rest, and then we're going to do those hip rolls one more time before we move on to the next thing. Here we go. There you go. Keeping those feet together as much as possible. I know mine are landing a little bit wider. I'm trying not to fall off the ball today. I usually try really hard not to fall off. It's not my favorite thing. There we go. Awesome job, really pushing those hips from side to side. Feeling it in my legs, feeling it in my obliques, working those hips. This is weirdly good glute work. I know, you're like, wait a second, I'm sitting on my glutes. How am I working them? Well, you are by balancing. 10 seconds of rest. And now we get to do single leg squats. Go ahead and stand up. I'm going to start with my right leg on the ground, left leg on the ground, right foot on the ball. So sitting down and standing up. This is much slower work after all those intervals of that high heart rate. This is tough. This is balance and strength. So sit back down into it. See if you can get your booty all the way on the ball. Trying really hard to sit all the way down onto that heel. There we go. Making sure that you're sitting back into it and pushing up with the heel of the foot that's on the ground versus crouching down into it and having that knee come over your toe. That's when your knee joint is doing a little bit too much work. So really thinking about sitting back down into it. When it beeps, of course, we get 10 seconds of rest. There it is. Thankfully, I've got a wall right here. 2 times on each leg. So I'm keeping that same leg on the ground, still balancing, really burning out, for me, that left side. The leg that's on the ground is the leg that's doing the work. So whichever foot you have on the ground is the one that we're burning out right now. Then when it beeps, we'll switch sides and do 2 intervals on the other leg. Really feeling this work. Whew, all up and down the leg. This is a really good, it's basically a single leg squat. It's both easier and more difficult when you have the balance ball underneath you. It's easier because personally I can get down a lot lower when I've got something to kind of rest on behind me. But it's also a lot more difficult because it's, I'm sure as you noticed, an unstable surface. So standing back up is much harder. It's the getting down that's much easier because of that balance ball. Whew. All right, let's go ahead and switch feet. I'm going to balance on that other side. 2 intervals doing single leg squats on the other side. Heart rate has come back down, but don't you worry, we're going to raise it back up again. This is a good HIIT workout, high intensity work. Going to get that heart rate up and bring it back down. Get the heart rate up and bring it back down. It's one of the most efficient ways to burn fat. Now, we're also doing the kind of strength work that's going to build muscle. So this is the kind of workout that is a lot of bang for your buck. Sometimes if we're just doing strength work, it's really, really good for you building muscle, but you're not burning a lot of calories while you're doing it. You basically have to rely on what we call the afterburn effect, and also just the metabolic effect of building muscle tissue helps you burn calories all the time. When you're doing 10 seconds of rest, this is not a resting position, I gotta stand up. One more interval on that side. when you're doing what we consider classic cardio work. Yes, you're building your muscles. Here we go. Yes, you're building your muscles, but mostly what you're doing is burning calories by having your heart rate up for a length of time. And generally speaking, when you do cardio work, your heart rate stays at the same level. So we're getting like the best of all worlds today, getting the afterburn effect from doing strength training, building muscle, so we are going to be burning more calories all the time, plus we're doing high heart rate work that goes up and down, so we're getting it even higher than it would be if we were sustaining that cardio interval. And really just all around, one of the best ways to burn fat, build muscle, and boost your metabolism. Boom, in like probably about 25 minutes today. It's my favorite kind of workout. When it beeps again, oh my goodness, we get to 10 seconds of rest, and then we move on to the next exercise, which is jackrabbits. Both feet on the ball, we're in a plank position. You're gonna move your knees, straighten and together, or to your chest. So out and in as quickly as you can go. This is a big challenge to your core, but we're also moving fast enough that this is cardio work. It's a lot like mountain climbers, actually, except that we're moving both feet at the same time. Really feeling this already in my abs and the tops of my legs, up in my quads, as well as, of course, my arms and shoulders. When it beeps, we get 10 seconds of rest, and then we'll do this again. Trying really hard not to lock your knees, straightening your legs completely, but not locking your knees. If you need a little bit of a modifier, roll the ball up closer to your knees or even your thighs. The closer the ball is, 10 seconds of rest. Yeah, that brought my heart rate up. The closer the ball is to the middle of your body, the easier this is. It never gets easy, but it's easier. Here we go again with the second interval. Nice and quick, bringing that heart rate up. You're doing awesome. Really thinking about holding that core in nice and tight. This is core work. You don't want to have your back swaying. You don't want to be up too high or down too low. Trying to get into a plank position each time. The bent knee position is weirdly a rest, even though it doesn't feel like it. When it beeps again, 10 seconds of rest. And we're going to get on our feet. And the next exercise we're doing is something I call alley-oops. Another great low-impact cardio move that I often do without the ball. But today, 10 seconds of rest. Today we're going to do it with the ball. Again, that little bit of resistance going to make it a little bit tougher than normal. Going to have your feet nice and wide. Hands go up. We pivot over and pivot over. Boom, side to side. Really thinking about shifting your feet, shifting your weight. It's basically kind of a lunge that we go into each time by pivoting your feet. Really going to feel this one in your legs, your heart and lungs. And I'm already feeling it in my shoulders again, you guys. I love this. Who knew that a balance ball could be so heavy? And here we go. Good job. When it beeps, we get 10 seconds of rest. Then we're going to do this one more time. Awesome. Whew, doggies. That really brought my heart rate up. This is not a lot of cardio, but I am really feeling it today. Up and alley-oop. Nice and fast. Knee turns in. If you can't get all the way down to your knee on the ground, totally okay. Wherever you can get to while protecting those knee joints is fine with me. As long as your feet are nice and wide and you're pivoting, then you are doing a great job. When it beeps again, we get 10 seconds of rest, and then we're going to do something that I call a forward hold deadlift. It's basically a forward hinge, but I want you to think about it like a deadlift because I want you to think about sticking your hips out behind you in order to accomplish this move. So the ball's just going to stay straight out in front of you. Feet are a little bit wider than hip width apart. Push your hips back until your head is more or less close to the top of the ball or the side of the ball here. And then stand it back up. This is slow and controlled movement. Already feeling this work in my shoulders. I'm going to really feel it in your bum by pushing your hips back and pulling your hips forward without really bending your knees. I know mine are a little bit soft, but without bending your knees. It's not a squat. We're really using that whole hip complex to drive this motion. The standing up motion is really pulling from the glutes and the hamstrings in order to stand back up. So thinking about your hips, hinge back and hips pull forward. When it beeps, we get 10 seconds of rest. To relax my shoulders. And then we're going to do that same exercise one more time. You are doing awesome. Forward hold and hinge and stand. Great job. Trying really hard not to have your elbows locked exactly, but also not to let them bow out or bow out too wide. As soon as they start bowing out, you're using your biceps more, which is fine. I mean, your biceps are supposed to be helping, but the real muscles that should be doing this work are on the tops of your shoulders, your deltoids, and actually in your upper back too, your rhomboids, and even your trapezius, doing some good shoulder complex work rather than just arm work. I know you feel it in your arms, that's okay. Arm muscles should be helper muscles, not prime movers. When it beeps again, 10 seconds of rest. Next up, another low impact cardio move, something I call frog reaches. A little bit easier this time because this ball is going to help us touch the ground, but it's a nice big squat down and stand up, pushing that ball up over your head each and every time. Feet are super duper wide, just like a frog stance when you're down into it, or like a sumo squat. This is harder, well, for me, harder than a regular squat because your knees and your feet are so wide that we're really using more of our inner and outer thighs. A little bit of a different challenge. Nice and fast, bringing that heart rate up. There we go, you're doing awesome. Once again, feeling this in my shoulders. Awesome. Woo, 10 seconds of rest. Try really hard not to lock your knees. Once our heart rate is up nice and high like that, don't just stand with your knees locked. I'm just kind of rolling side to side. Here we go. 10 seconds isn't quite enough time to pass out, I hope. But really, when in doubt, don't ever pass out, okay? Thanks, I appreciate that. Nice high heart rate because our next exercise is another core stabilizer. One of my favorites because it's so difficult, thereby making it both my favorite and least favorite sort of exercise. Something I call rollouts. We're going to be with our knees on the ground and forearms on top of the ball. Kind of a plank position. Now we're going to try and straighten our arms and then roll them back underneath us. Tiny, tiny little motion. You'll be surprised at how much it works your abs when the ball is barely moving. Whew, great job. So, plank position with elbows and forearms on top of the ball. You're going to have your elbows directly underneath your shoulders. We're going to roll it out and bring it back. Tiny motion. Lots of difficulty. I'm already shaking on this one. Roll it out and bring it back. If you've ever used an ab roller, it's a lot like that motion where you're keeping your body in a perfect plank, but getting your hands and your stabilization further away from you is what makes this so tough. There we go. Awesome job. High heart rate paired with slow heart rate, but core stability work. That is tough, but so, so good for you. This kind of high heart rate core work is good for functional fitness. Woo, 10 seconds of rest. Because sometimes when your heart rate is high, you know, if you're running or walking or doing anything where your heart rate is high, your core gets really tired and it's hard to hold yourself up. That's when you get into things like lower back problems and, you know, function difficulties like your feet not landing properly, and you can do all kinds of injuries or just pains from not having your core strong enough while you're doing high heart rate or jumping or impact kind of work, even low impact work if you're not bracing your core properly. So doing this kind of core stabilization when your heart rate is already high is super, super good for your core, way better than if you're doing it when your heart rate is low. When the timer beeps again, 10 seconds of rest, and you guys, we are very near the end of my list, which means it is getting tough. Next up, more high heart rate work plus core stabilization at the same time. Oh, we are doing balance ball burpees. Yes, indeed. So on your feet, you're gonna have the ball in your hands. You wanna hold it in a place where you're not moving your hands around. You're gonna land the ball on the ground, jump your feet back, jump your feet forward, and stand it up. We're not jumping up, but we are going as fast as you can, trying really hard to make sure that your hands are landing right underneath your shoulders so that we're getting directly out into a plank position. If you need to walk out to a plank position rather than jumping, totally okay. I would much rather have you, if you can't jump for whatever reason, do the walking version of this so that you can really get your core nice and stable. And up, you're doing awesome. Really getting a lot more upper body work than I normally do from burpees because of this unstable surface underneath your hands. Awesome. Whew. All right, 10 seconds of rest, and then we're going to do that one more time. Here we go. Out, in, and up. It's totally okay if you're not jumping out as far as you think you normally would for a burpee. It's not really about that. It really is about trying to get into a plank position, really challenging that core for a brief amount of time. The cardio is the jumping and the fast motion and the hands over your head, and everything else is core stability. When it beeps again, 10 seconds of rest, and we're going to do something even tougher than this. Good news is, we are real close to being done. Next up on the list is balance ball mountain climbers. And I will tell you that my mountain climbers are going to be much, much slower than a normal mountain climber. You are welcome to have hands on the ball or forearms on the ball. I prefer forearms on the ball because it's a little bit more stable. And what you're going to do is just run your knees towards the ball. Obviously, much, much slower than regular mountain climbers. Take your time. This is cardio work, but honestly, this is more about core stabilization. And that core is working so hard to stabilize that it ends up being cardio work because my heart rate is going through the roof, trying not to fall over on this. When it beeps, we'll put those knees down, 10 seconds of rest. Awesome. Yeah, that got hard. You're doing awesome though. This is the last one. And here we go. Right on top there. Giving it your best. When it beeps again, we do get 10 seconds of rest. And then the next thing that we're doing is the built-in finisher. Yay! I know you're excited about that. It is the hardest thing that we're going to do. And I'll go ahead and tell you now, we don't get any rest on the 2 intervals that we're doing. It's actually going to be, oh golly, whew, sorry about that. I had to put my knees down for a second. My arms are just about done with this work. It's funny how this feels a lot like arm and shoulder work. Whew. Whew, well, so's the next one. We're going to be in a plank position with feet on the ball. We're going to do something I call plank walkers, walking 1 foot off at a time. So, around here, off and off. Again, set your own challenge. You can see that I've got shins on the ball. This is not easy work, especially because our 10 seconds that would normally be rest are not going to be rest at all. It's just going to be a plank hold. So we're doing 2 intervals with no rest. Well, it's going to be 4 intervals, of course, because 2 long intervals, 2 short intervals without any rest at all. But then we will be finished. So plank walkers plus a plank hold. And this is going to be plank hold. Hands right underneath your shoulders. Core is nice and tight. When it beeps again, here we go. Last interval of the plank walkers. You can see that I'm taking that little half a second rest with my foot on the ground. It's a little bit more stable. My core, my shoulders, feeling very noodly. This got tough real fast, you guys. That's why it's the finisher. When it beeps again, we've got that 10-second plank hold, and then that is going to be it. We are so close to finished. This is tough, but you are tougher, Killer Bee. And here we go, 10-second plank hold. Hold it tight. When it beeps again, that's it. I'm going to turn off the timer. And that was it. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm just dripping from that finisher. That was awesome. Since we've got the ball here, you guys, let's do some cool down stretching too. I tell you what, go ahead and sit on top. I'm going to spread my knees real wide and I'm just going to lean down into it. Oh man, this is a really good stretch for the backs of your legs and also your lower back. I tell you what, that last couple of exercises between the mountain climbers and that plank hold, my lower back was saying, hey, I think I'm doing a little bit too much work. So you want to make sure that you really stretch that out. Just let gravity kind of pull you down into it. And then we're going to straighten out one leg. And I'm just going to lean towards it. Now, when I do this kind of a stretch, I do not try and put my hands towards my toes, mostly because I can't really get my hands to my toes, but also because it's a little bit more of a big stretch in my back than I like to do. So I just lean towards it and have my elbows on top of my thigh near my knee to be able to stretch down and get a nice little hamstring stretch. And then we'll straighten out the other side. Straighten that out over there. Just elbows on your knee and sweat in your eyeballs. I don't know about you, but I got really sweaty today. That was a very nice, short but sweaty workout. As we sit up from this, I'm just going to roll the ball underneath me and roll right over the top of it. If you want, you can roll up a little bit higher so that your head and neck are supported too. That's totally okay. Whatever feels good to you, as long as your palms are facing up towards the ceiling and you're just letting gravity pull your hands down, this is a really nice stretch on your chest and shoulders. Plus it's helping the sweat drip away from my eyeballs. Although my glasses are steaming up now. Go ahead and sit back up. I want to show you this. Nice and steamy on those glasses. That's how I know it was a really good workout. I really, really hope that you had a good time with this one too. If you did, I would love it if you'd give the video a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about any of the exercises that we do, go ahead and leave me a comment because I do always respond to those. And make sure that you click that subscribe button so that we can work out together again next time too. Thanks!